we start, please? Yes. Here's the timetable that our real organizer, Nuwan, will explain in a minute. But he is distributing a white paper, which is intended to be used for the questioning form or question form. In view of little time allowed, I'd like you all of you guys to fill any question or comments on paper. And the moderators will pick up and read them out to the most appropriate timing and to the speakers. So you may be frustrated, you may not have the time to raise your hands and talk your questions. We'll see. Okay, I think now it's time, so Nuwan, if you could start.
Hello, testing. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming into this session. This is, Pio, can I get my slides? Yep. So this session is titled Cry for Help, How Do We Reconnect the Disconnected During Disasters? Next slide. So usually, is silence a cry for help? Does that mean like if you are not hearing anything, like a tree falls in the forest and you don't hear it, does that mean there's no disaster there? So this is the basic theme, is like if you don't get any data or information from where the disaster happened, does that mean everything is okay or everything is not okay? Next slide, please. Right after the Nepal earthquake, I did some analysis on they had what's called the quake map. And it was basically people sending in text messages, making phone calls, and then reporting this data to the quake map people, which was hosted by the Kathmandu Living Labs. And they had a wealth of data, several thousand records, which I just crunched to see whether I could find any patterns in terms of finding areas where there might have been any deficit in telecom communication. So this is just one story from some of the data that I got. You see, like the topmost, it says it was 5 days before there was any kind of report that came from that green pegs. And then later on the 6th day, you see them moving down to where the blue peg is. So I'm wondering whether actually somebody had to hike this entire distance in this rugged terrain to provide the data. And then you see that there's this natural thing where they went to one village the next day, and then the one after that the next day, and then eventually it took them 9 days just to cover that small area, which is about 6 square meters by about 10 square meters, right? Next slide, please. And then thinking about all that, there are several components in emergency communication, especially the functions, in terms of saving lives. We talk about business continuity, we talk about governments having a emergency communication channel, we talk about survivability and availability. Availability, do we have access? Survivability, can the telecom sustain a disaster? And we talk about rapid restoration of access, like do we bring in equipment from outside and then we try to restore the telecoms for the public. And then because we need all that to generate a common operating picture as to what's happening during the disaster. So mainly focusing on that first 72 hours is the critical period. Next slide, please. We can break that down into robust infrastructure at the base. When I say robust infrastructure, talking about survivability and availability, we also need to talk about like not just the telecom infrastructure, but about the roads and accessibility, the engineers to be able to access the telecom towers to fix them. Or they might be victims themselves. Do we think about that? And then resilient ICT sit on top of that. So you think about contingencies, right? Most of the time telcos will they'll say, oh yeah, we have a BCDRP or a business continuity plan, but they only think about like having extra equipment, but they never think about like what about the personnel and other resources. And we need all that for the communication to work and emergency communication services. So making phone calls, sending text messages, all that. So our focus will be in this session will be the red and the orange sector, and I think Isumi-san is going to go over later on in the session into the green section. Next slide, please. Having talked to the panelists, we broke this down into, let's discuss about the issues and strategies. So you will have to tell us what the issues are and the possible strategies might be. That's the whole focus of this workshop, not us telling you what. And then we looked at international coordination mechanism. How can we help the UN? And then also about local infrastructure. How can we get the local telcos to be better prepared? And most importantly, empowering the communities, because they are the ones who have to use this at the end. So do we look at like community-based ICTs, or do we look at strengthening all of them, or is it a mix of all that? So as Isumi said, there's a piece of paper. You will hear from the panelists, so write down your question and then tick it as to one of the these columns that you have, or leave it as other, and then pass it on to us, and then we'll ask the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. Just add, could you introduce yourself briefly?
Oh,
Who
yeah.
you are?
My name is Nuan Vaidyanath. I'm a Sri Lankan, but I live in Kunming, China. Been there for the past 10 years. I work as a Learn Asia, with Learn Asia as a researcher, so that's where I do my research. And I also work with the Sahana Software Foundation as a director, and that's where I do my implementation. So I bring my research into actual implementation. And I work closely with all the UN organizations. I like standardization, standards, so I work on that, and mostly focusing on affordable and low-cost, easy-to-use solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nuwan. And now we'd like to go into the first real session and demonstration led by Professor Kanchana. Yes. Her current interests are in challenge and emergence in networks, digital media communications, teleeducation, human resource. She's like a mother of the internet in Thailand. And it was sort of induced to the Internet Hall of Fame with the John Pasua Award, the first awardee from Thailand, and I think Southeast Asia as well. But without further ado, could you introduce your team members and then do the demonstration? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I thank the organizer for allowing us to have this session at APrIGF. My team composes of members of Internet Education and Research Lab at AIT. The first one is Ms. Nistarat at the back. She's our everything. She coordinates everything. She's the boss. Next is Priya, who is sitting here. He's one of our researchers in networking. He's going to. We run many activities, and he's one of our key person. Next is Pui Prichai, who is standing there. He's our code. He's do the coding. But today, all of us are here and trying to show you what we have done. Okay, so what we would like to do is to run through our experience, and hopefully from this, you can analyze the situation and maybe come up with a good suggestion for the community. So let us look at what we've done. We call this session Dumbo Sahana Call Center Demo. Sahana is the software that developed by Sahana Foundation, and Dumbo is our network from Asian Institute of Technology. Next. Okay, so Dumbo was, both Sahana and Dumbo were developed after tsunami in 2004. I was working with research lab in France, from India, and Y project in Japan. So we put our effort, we diverted our effort to focus on emergency communication. And we did a demonstration in 2006, which you can see the diagram on the left, where we set up elephant network in 2 elephant camps. And we have headquarters in AIT, which is in Bangkok. And all of this were communicated through satellite link provided by the APrIGF network satellite. Next, please. Our philosophy is to use the commodity devices, low cost. We started by assuming that everybody who came to our, who came as volunteer had their own network, had their own notebook. And we also used a handheld single board Unix machine at that time. And then gradually we moved to having our own mobile routers. In this room, we already set up our DumboNet. We show you. Okay, so you can see that there are 4 nodes of our network, which could we could set this up very easily. You could, all these volunteers took our mobile routers and just walk around the room. And we can monitor the network. Okay, that can be done in just few minutes. All right, so this is our low cost and easy to deploy network that can be deployed anywhere. Okay, we had 2 deployments in 2008. In Myanmar, they were struck with Cyclone Nargis, and our Asia Pacific internet community tried to find a way to help them. So APrIGF sponsored 10 engineers from Myanmar to be trained in AIT, because at that time the government of Myanmar would not let foreigners to go in to help. So that's our strategy. So we brought out Myanmar engineers and we trained them, and we gave them all the needed equipment. EEPC netbooks were donated by APNG, Ching Chao. I don't know, many of you in this room may have known him. And then the people went back to Myanmar and they deployed our network in 3 locations. DumboNet was deployed by Myanmar people. None of us went into Myanmar. And the coordinator of that event, that activity was by an NGO in Myanmar called Myanmar APrIGF. And satellite transmission was donated by Thaicom, by APrIGF. We used both Dumbo and Sahana. Sahana people were mainly, volunteers who used to join the APNG camp. So this is how we got together. So the deployment could start 3 weeks after the disaster. So that 3-week period should be reduced. Next, please. So the second deployment was in Nepal, 2015. When Nepal was struck by earthquake, I tried to coordinate AP communities, and I failed because everybody said, "Oh, we wanted to wait," but I didn't want to wait. So I asked TH Nick Foundation to donate money to buy equipment. So we bought 50 small TP-Link routers, and we put our own firmware in that and shipped that to Nepal. And we got Nepalese students in AIT who spent almost 1 week building the routers, and then we send them with the medical team from Thailand to Nepal, and got the Nepal NRAN, which is the research education network people in Nepal, to help us in deploying the network in 4 hospitals in Nepal. And the activity that people use the network for was for voice call. They use it for VoIP. Okay, so today we're going to demonstrate how the DumboNet that we already set up can be used for voice call, for social media line, and web. We will skip that, and we will we'll show you how to use Sahana on this one. Sahana is a software for disaster management system, which no one can tell us about.
So Sahana Foundation originates after the tsunami, like Kanchana said. Basically, a bunch of volunteers who are coders got together and developed a mechanism for the government to manage the chaos with the data. And at that time, there was no disaster management open source system, free to use, and it got adopted worldwide. And now we have a worldwide organization that is being used. Some of the avid users like Red Cross, State of New York, Myanmar, Maldives, Philippines. There are lots of countries and lots of different templates and packages.
So, okay, to set up, we would like to get everyone to have experience on our network. So if you can turn on your phone, your cellular phone, and you select Wi-Fi, SSID, Dumbo, and
28, 29, and 30.
29 and 30. So choose whichever one you want. So that means you are connected to the network, and you can either scan the QR code in front of you or type this address. It will go to the landing page. Okay, and we will show you how each one works. Okay, so in our demonstration, we assume that we are 48 hours after a major flood, and everything failed. I mean, sometimes during disaster, the communication network still functioning, but you will face a heavy congestion because everybody trying to use it. So if we can offload that kind of communication from the telcos, it will be helpful for the situation. So what we assume is that we have 3 groups of rescue center, and there's 1 volunteer per group. So no one would handle the first group of called the center, and Nisarat the second group, and Prichai the third group. Okay, so the first group, no one will. There's a call center here, which is handled.
I am Nandapat. I will be the call center for this demonstration. So, okay, I will show you the page. Oops, sorry, the page of the Sahana form that. Okay, this one. So the duty of the call center is get the information from the people in the disaster area, what they need, what they want. So maybe for the first time, maybe no one will call to the call center, right?
Okay, so if I can get a volunteer, what we're going to use here is a VoIP SIP phone that is connected to this modem. So we don't have internet, right? We cannot talk with the outside world, but what we are doing is we are going around and collecting data in the disaster zone. And that's our call center. So any volunteer who wants to just read out this passage? Come on. Okay, you do it. He's closer. Yeah, so this is just a scenario.
There.
So First you have to dial 100 and 001. Make the call.
So now I got a call here. I'm call center, right? Okay. Hello? Hello? Call center.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
They're adults, children, and infants at the Red Rose Middle School, and they need food and water for next 3 days. 35 adults and 15 children and 2 infants. Can you hear correctly?
Can you speak again, please?
There are 35 adults, 15 children, and 2 infants at the Red Rose Middle School, and they need food and water for the next 3 days. Can you hear?
Okay, so that was through telephone. I mean, voice over IP on our network. Next, volunteer 2 will key in Sahana form directly from their laptop or their tablet. Nisarat, you are doing that? So while she's keying, another volunteer will report his incidents using social media line, which is very common in this region. Even though I'm not, I mean, this is not advertisement, but we pick the most commonly used social media. And the line that we are using is local. It's our own software. It's not the line. Yeah. Okay, done. So you got the second one, third one.
Yeah.
Done.
So now I got the 2 new record here, right, as you can see here. So today is 27, right? And
Okay, so we go to the next slide. Right. So there are 3 scenarios that were reported, and let us see what have you got on your Sahana.
So while maybe Pio is doing that, I'll explain. So now, can we do the same?
Yes, go ahead.
So now what we are imagining is we have collected the data in this disaster zone, and Pio is going to establish an internet connection. So maybe he hikes for another 2 kilometers and gets a connection.
Anuwan, could you
Okay.
wind up in 4 minutes, please?
Yeah.
We
And
are
then this is the
finishing.
last one. Okay. And then he's going to show how he's going to synchronize it with a Sahana instance on the cloud. So now decision makers can see this data and make decisions from a central location.
Okay, so he has uploaded the records that he gathered from these 3 camps, and okay, so the thing is that Pierre has to walk maybe 2 or 3 kilometers in order to find the site that has coverage and upload the information for help. I mean, getting the help from the outside world. So in the future, we hope that we can use drone to come around and pick up his request from where he is. Okay, so we are doing research on that at the moment at AIT. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for Kanchana and the AIT team and Nuwan, Sahana Foundation. I'm so sorry to push you to the time frame. That's my job as a moderator, not my personal preference. But anyway, so after this, we'll have Unfortunately, there's one cancellation of the speaker. 3 presentations about the crisis communication and related areas on this region. Our first speaker will be Mr. Navid Ulhak. He's well-known ISOC guy. Could we show his bio somewhere? The slide. So let me read summary. His specialty is the development of related policy issues and linkages, among others. Used to work for the Pakistani Telecom Authority and also was an alumni member of ICANN Fellowship, among others. So now it's a turn.
Thank you very much, Sumi-san. Hello, good morning, everyone. So I haven't made any PowerPoint presentation. I'll just speak some of the thoughts that I have around this topic. So what I'm gonna cover is the community empowerment. So most of my discussion, and probably I'll try to finish before 5 minutes. I'm not sure if I can speak throughout the 5 minutes, but oh, okay. So imagine 10 years back when. So I'll just take an example from Pakistan. In 2006, we had a flood, and flood. It's kind of we have this geography within Pakistan which is very much prone with the floods. So 10 years back we had this flood which affected a whole big geography area, and unfortunately that area was the underserved area. I'm talking about the villages, not the big cities. Now the analysis that we did after that flood concluded that most of the casualties were caused due to the panic. The panic which was caused due to that flood that hit those areas. The first 5 to 6 hours, the community was so much in panic that they were running around trying to find a shelter, trying to look for their loved ones and try to rescue them by their own, whatever resources they had, and unfortunately they didn't have much resources. Now, the point is that now, after the 12 years or 11 years, unfortunately, the same area has the same problem. We are expecting a flood coming in next 2 weeks or so. And I suspect that the same thing will happen. The discussions have been done in the main capitals, the big industry players, etc., have been discussing that we should do something, but unfortunately, I again suspect that the same thing will happen. The first 5-6 hours, whenever that flood is coming in, will create that panic, and we will not be able to save many lives. So, going back, I think the point I'm trying to make is that we probably are more prepared when the disaster hits that area, and we send the emergency response teams. We try to ensure that they get the food, they get the shelter. But the missing point is that we are not preparing that community, those areas, to prepare themselves by their own to reduce that panic. The point I'm trying to make is something hits an area, and in next 72 hours we deploy teams, everything happens. But that 5 to 6 hours is the missing link. And in the discussions that we are trying to do with the community or with our stakeholder is that, we probably have to give more focus to empower the community so they can help themselves. Another barrier that we have observed is the language. Now what happens is that the main communication means, or the main internet means, or whatever we see around is primarily based in English in most part of Asia Pacific. And if I talk Nepal or Pakistan or even Vanuatu, we see that we rely more on the English as the primary language, and we assume that those people in that village or in that remote area would understand what we are trying to communicate with them. But that doesn't happen as well. So we have to look into this as well. When we talk about the community empowerment, I mean, pick up the local people, try to tell them in their own language that if something happens, God forbid, what they can do in their own local spaces. So we should not expect me going into that place and trying to tell them or teach them something in English. Rather, we should rely on that local resources which can communicate with each other in their own language, which is understandable to them as well.
You have 3 more minutes.
Okay, Zumi-san. So that's the second point on community empowerment. The third point I'll try to make is that in our observation, there have been a lot of progress done through internet, because internet is a decentralized resource. You don't need a centralized place to operate internet. It's decentralized. You can use it whenever you have it. The same approach probably is something that we have to replicate when we talk about disaster preparedness and mitigation. It has to be decentralized. I'm not saying don't have a centralized organization, or you should have a centralized coordination, but it probably would have more effect if we can follow a decentralized approach. And by decentralized approach, I mean let the community empower itself, let the community get itself ready with the social media or the tools, etc., etc. Now, example from Nepal is that it happened after the earthquake that Nepal police started using the social media. I mean, they were using social media, but the account that they made specifically to address the disaster in Nepal actually helped that much that there was a story. There was a person who was stuck in a car somewhere in a village. He was able to tweet using that Twitter and putting that handle of the Nepal police in his tweet. And that actually helped the police to contact some of the local people and get that person who was stuck somewhere with his family in a car, get out of that situation. Then in Vanuatu, there were satellite phones which were deployed, but again they were deployed after the disaster was hit. So what if those areas were already having that equipment available to them and available to them to respond and try to help themselves.
1 more minute to wind up.
Okay. So I mean that's just a kind of a brief points that I wanted to highlight here for further discussion, and I hope that once we'll move forward with other panelists as well, I would like to have your points and thoughts as well, and maybe sharing some stories around. I can see people from Nepal. Last point, just very quick last point. It's the benefit that it brought in Nepal that people have realized the power of ICT, not only for disaster, but also using ICT for other things as well. So the ICT was deployed heavily in Nepal, and now what's happening is that the people have started using ICT for education and for health as well. So I won't say it's a blessing, but that actually it actually started the realization by the community that how they can use ICT not only for disaster but for their own social and economic empowerment. I'll stop here. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Naveed. If you have questions for the first presentations of demonstration as well as for Naveed, you have the white paper. And at the next session, which will begin at 12:15, we'll do the Q&A session. So be prepared. Write your questions or comments now or during the next presentations and get to us. Otherwise, you will be dismissed. You are not heard. So let's cry. One more thing, additional announcement is, because you mentioned of the Nepali station, Naveed, and as well, I propose to have an extended session. After this session is formally over, I ask the permission of the organizer to have 30 minutes more here while educating Nepal guys, the youngsters who did some survey, as well as the support and outreach of the very poor villages and urban areas. So they will share their findings after this session is over at 1 o'clock. There'll be no transcription. It's outside the formal workshop, but you have additional value. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Jeffrey Danto. Yes, he's another pioneer in the Philippines on the disaster communication management. and got several awards. I don't know the details, but yes, he'll talk about what? Yes, you have the floor. Thank you. It's a telecom story after Yolanda and Haiyan. Grab and go.
Yes, sir.
Kids.
Thank you, Isomi-san. And I noticed that you have all the signals,
Yes.
the whistle, but it's too old. Maybe next time you should use the Dombo net so that you can just chat. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Lianto from the Philippines, and let me just show to you the project that we had together with the government of Japan called the Movable and Deployable ICT Resource Unit. Next, please. We know that Japan and the Philippines were very lucky. We have the historic tsunami and the historic typhoon. So, and all of us in the Asia Pacific, we all have our own shares of disasters. So maybe all of us already know that the 2011 was the highest recorded earthquake, and the Typhoon Haiyan was already called Super Typhoon. Maybe this is because of all the Hollywood movies right now. Even the typhoons wants to be called super. So, next slide, please. So this project is a joint partnership together with ITU, MIC, the Department of Science and Technology in the Philippines, CBSNet Foundation, NTT, and the municipality of San Romeo, Cebu, which was one of the worst devastated area in the Philippines. So we have these learnings during disaster. It might sound ironic that we learn a lot from disasters. Here it's moving from the grassroots going up. Normally, we want to ask ourselves, what are the available communications at the community level? Right now, smartphones are getting cheaper and cheaper. You notice that Dombonet, all of them just went to your tables, install it. What's given there? All of you, you have your own smartphones, and you just ride on Dombonet as the infrastructure. Basically, this is what NTT did. During the 2011, Japan, we're talking Japan, the #1 in technology, it took them, correct me if I'm wrong, my Japanese friends, 2 months to recover their telecommunications. That's Japan. Maybe in Philippines, it will take us another 20 years. So that's how, you know. So the aim of this project is to establish an immediate communications. First, it started in 2012, funded by NIC. It's a very big container van, and it's not appropriate. If there's disaster, the first one that gets hit is the physical infrastructure, means the road. How can you transfer that one to the remote areas? Next, they make it smaller. It becomes the van type. If you notice the picture in the middle, that's the van. It can traverse to roads, smaller roads. And next slide, please. So this is the application of the MDRU. If you notice, during the second and the third days, during the disaster, the emergency period, that's the highest point where there's the demand. Slowly, it gradually goes down on the next 6 months. So this is what our learnings. But again, when we were having this research together with Japan for the past 2 years, it was recognized also by ITU. We asked them, do we need this technology just during disaster? Why not use this technology to provide infrastructure to remote places, like remote islands, to mountainous areas? So the infrastructure is there. So we made some researches, and we made some agreements. And right now, it's already part of NTT. They call it as the wireless IPPBX system. It's already part of the NTT. I think it's already a product by NTT. So next slide. So it's a community-wide wireless IPPBX system. It offers voice communication. It has a command center, evacuation center, hospitals, and other disaster. But this one is being based from the Japanese point of view of software.
You have 2 more minutes.
Use the light. So, fortunately, we were talking with Nuwan and Sahana Foundation, and we're also very happy that we can integrate several softwares because it's typically open source. They're using also the SIP asterisk system. So next slide. So this is the modularized MDRU system. It's already in a attaché case setup. You can carry it around, put it to remote areas, maybe on a motorbike, or maybe in a bicycle, or just put it in your backpack and set it up. In less than 3 minutes, you can have your own wireless infrastructure using ICT. And I think that wraps up my presentation. Izumi-san,
Oh, thank you. You have
Thank you very
additional 1
much.
minute if you like to use.
now maybe
No?
during
Okay.
question and answer.
Okay, please write any questions or comments now. We are getting more interactive to the end of the our session, so be prepared. And without further ado, yes. Okay, I'd like to invite our next speaker or last speaker on the panel, Atsuko Okuda. Her bio profile. She's now based in Bangkok. When I met her first, she was in New York in 1999. Went to Bhutan to help support internet to be deployed there. Went to Africa, Beirut, and now back to Bangkok. She's the head of the ICT4D at the UNSCAP. Let's go, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Now, first of all, I want to explain a few things, just in case you haven't heard about ESCAP before. ESCAP is a UN agency. Do you know ESCAP? If you know, please raise your hands. Thank you, thank you, thank
Almost.
you. Almost half, or more than half. We are the regional arm of the UN Secretariat, which means that you know the headquarters in New York, and we are the smaller version in Asia and Pacific, and we are in Bangkok. We are happy to be in Bangkok. We cover the 62 member countries from Turkey to Kiribati, so we are the largest regional commissions in the UN. Now, what we do, what my job is to promote the ICT connectivity from Turkey to Kiribati and looking at everything holistically. Now, disaster is a very important component for us because, as you have heard repeatedly, when disaster hits, infrastructure gets destroyed and disconnected, and we have to build from the scratch again. That affects people's lives, and people's lives meaning the lives. There are lots of loss of people's lives. So we came to a conclusion that this has to be looked at from many different angles, including from the ICT infrastructure. With this, our purpose is to make sure that when something happens, earthquake, floods, tsunami, the disruption on the ICT connectivity will be minimum. There has to be something left. If it takes 2 months, it's too long. So our objective is to start now to look at what kind of disaster risks we have from Turkey to Kiribati and how we can mitigate that kind of disruption. So our initiative, Asia Pacific Information Superhighway, is to start designing the ICT infrastructure, taking in mind, slow down. Thank you. Yes, I got your message. Early warning.
You have 3 more minutes.
Thank you.
Hurry up.
To design the ICT infrastructure now, so that we know where possibly the earthquake may hit, and we will avoid these possible natural hazards. Next slide, please. So the Information Superhighway is an initiative to provide the affordable and resilient ICT infrastructure. Now, I know that many of you have heard what ITU and other agencies have been doing. I can already see the question marks in your minds. The role of ESCAP in doing this is not to repeat or create overlap in what other agencies have been doing, but we clearly see the gap. For instance, our main mandate is to make sure that countries, 62 in our case, work together and collaborate to make things happen. And 2, we are socio-economic entity of the United Nations. So now is the time of data availability. We analyze a lot of socio-economic data to use for the design and implementation of ICT infrastructure and services. So this is our strength, that we have 62 member countries, ICT ministries, as well as disaster agencies, and to analyze where are the pain points. So we have a team, in fact, in the office analyzing the disaster risks. Next, please. So the information superhighway has 4 pillars. I talked about comprehensive pictures. This is the way how member countries wanted us to work. Connectivity, physical infrastructure. 2, the network and traffic management, because sometimes even if there is a cable, it doesn't do much. We look at e-resilience as well as broadband for all. Next, please. So this is the map that we create. The left-hand side, this is the cable, where the cables are at the moment, and we are turning it
One more minute.
into the hazard maps. Next, please. As a way to communicate with all the stakeholders, we have a gateway. Next, please. This is the URL. We have, I have flyers for more detailed information. Next, please. We also, thank you. So this is the email address. I'll be more than happy to provide more information on what exactly we do and how we can engage your constituencies and groups for our initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for following the very strict time coordination. I'm sorry. Yeah, the flyer you can bring forward. And meantime, please, all the panel members come here, and also please send all of your questions if you have. How many? You please give us some head-aching questions, or and you can write down later when it happens to you again. And right after this, we may have failed to explain you. We will have more 20 minutes exercise that you'll be gather the team and discuss the issues in 20 minutes time. One reason why we keep this time so compressed is disaster is like that. You have not much time to think. You have to act, and there are a lot of confusions. You don't know where the information is coming from, where the bus is, and stuff like that. And sometimes we do this kind of simulation exercise of a very chaotic situation, and most of the real experienced people say, "Oh, this is much better than what it happens." So be mind and be mindful for that. So there are some questions with. Okay. Nothing international. Okay, there are 3 questions about the community thing. How do you deal with persons with disabilities who are most vulnerable to such disasters? How do you
How do you
provide capacity building support to a
country
that speaks
800 languages?
800 languages? Okay, no AI. So whoever about the disabilities, yes, Nabi?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. So the short answer would be that I think we have to really push for accessibility by design principle. What we've been observing lately with some of the work that we have been doing with the person with disabilities or on their issues when they try to access internet is that most of the programmers, the software designers, those people who build these solutions that we use in our communication channels through internet, they have no idea on the accessibility standards. So I think the best way actually is to promote the accessibility by design. So these products and solutions, when they come in the market, which we use during the disaster mitigation and recovery, they have this accessibility options available by design.
Sorry, yeah. Whoever made a question, could you raise your hand about this? Okay, thank you. I may come back to you or not, but just.
Yeah, so I just want to add to it. So we are looking at, from a disability component, there's something called low literates functionally illiterate. So functionally illiterate is me living in China and not being able to read Chinese. So if I get an alert message in Chinese, I just delete it, right? So we are exploring the idea of pictographs. How can we use pictographs to communicate during disasters, but most importantly, for people to communicate their distress signals, saying, we need water, or we have 5 people injured, or we need 10 people rescued from the flood. So with mobile phones, the power of mobile phones and GIFs, being able to animate this, being able to convert pictographs into text is something that we are looking at.
Okay. Any question for the 800 language thing?
Pictographs.
I think again I'll reiterate my point of, when we talk about resiliency in the networks, I think we have to discuss and go through the resiliency in the community as well. If we are able to come up with a plan where the community empowerment, or we can make the resiliency in the community by itself, that's the only solution I can see. I mean, it's really hard to, as you said, 800 languages. We have countries in Asia Pacific, multiple hundreds local languages. So it's very important when we build up this community resiliency plan, we take in this account this local language and local communication factor as well.
For me, the sharing the same language of the same linguistic community using the SNS, Twitters, or WhatsApp, or emoji, or whatever, usually has better effective way than translation from the capital city to the local community. Help each other is one way to put it. So the next question is, during the disaster emergency situations, the local community is in the state of panic and chaos. How can we bring them into proper organization to provide maximum possible help and support to the affected victims? Yes, Jeffrey?
One of our learnings with the Japanese team is they are focused more on technology. When we apply it, it's more on the social side. So the first thing that you're going to ask is it applicable to the residents? The first concern is, where do I get the food? It's not the communication. Where do I get the fuel? So here, I think the best way is to integrate what are the existing way of life of the community. Then you introduce technology. You cannot introduce a tractor to a farmer who is very keen on using the carabaos. We told the Japanese friends that this is the way it is. You cannot introduce something new to them. So what we did is we made technology entertaining, that they must have to use it just like Facebook. Make it as simple as it is, so that it can really penetrate to the community level.
Thank you. Any comments from the audience about this? I changed the rule. Yes, thank you. Any microphone there, or?
There's a mic over there.
Yeah, please use the microphone. Yeah, some of us have hearing problems.
I mean, from my experience, because Fiji had last year a very damaging cyclone, probably one of the strongest in the region in the past 10, 20 years. And like you said, I think the cultural context plays an important dynamic because, for example, even though we have access to social media, there was no centralized sort of action by civil society organizations or government to collect the data from the social media and use it on the ground in the field, even though we probably have good sort of reasonable internet penetration rate. And I was wondering, I'm a keen follower of social media in emergency management and also VOST, virtual operation support groups. Is there anyone probably could share their experience in this field?
You want?
Yeah, so have you heard of Humanity Road? Yeah, so they help in gathering social media data and polishing it a little bit and presenting it to the emergency managers, because you're right, you get a lot of noise in this, right, that you need to weed out. Like, for example, in Nepal's Twitter, about 70% of it was about people saying, God bless you. That's it.
In Japan, our team called IT DOT, Disaster Assistance Response Team, has some member from IBM, and we are offered Watson to do the analysis of the tweets and some of the social medias. And it's still early stage, but we're working on that. A similar attempt is done by the Korean researchers based in the Philippines or something, working with Twitter company as of 2 years ago. So there must be some scattered activities like that, but there's yet to be seen a coordination for that. With that, I'd like to ask Kanchana to answer to the 2 questions given to Dambo. Could you explain the question and then
Right.
answer?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The first question, actually, I received in reverse order, but I like to answer this one first. So Dumbo routers consume very low energy. What is the assumed power sources, especially to recharge, as power supply are usually down for considerably long time. In our experience, like when we send our DumboNet to Myanmar, they were out of power. We sent them a power generator as well, and they can charge batteries at night, and they can, like your phone, they charge everything at night, and during the daytime, they can use Dumbo. Yeah. So I think if you can have solar panel today, it's quite easy to power your battery. Now, second question is, can tools such as the Dumbo network and MDRU be used in cases of government-ordered internet shutdowns? In Thai, we normally answer, ha ha ha.
The same with the Philippines.
Ha 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 means 555. Okay. I believe in people's power in this case, and I hope this situation would never happen. Government is using the internet. If they shut the internet down, they are shutting themselves too. So, thank you.
Yeah, for the MDRU, the shutdowns, I'm not so sure if we can really have that as a solution, but definitely the MDRU can be a community-based telephone communications system that's being operated by the local residents. So if this community will have its own backhaul connecting to another community, then they will create what we call a municipal-wide or a city-wide information system. So maybe in the near future it can help for such shutdowns.
Thank you. Before moving to the next very interesting question, I'd like to ask you guys a question. How many of you have really faced serious disaster situation yourself? Raise your hands. How many of you may not have a direct experience in the front, but also involved in some kind of rescue or support operation of kind? Could you raise your hands? Maybe same people or other people. How many of you guys anticipate that something really serious may happen to your community, your country, so that you're here? Okay, thank you. Is there any person who haven't raised any of the hands? Raise your hand. No, I'm kidding, but thank you. Yes, it's a valid. Thank you for all the interest. And now the next question, please.
So this question is very interesting. It's about all the countries around the world have their own cybercrime act. But for people who did crime outside the borders, we cannot track them, as well as there is no treaty between the countries. MCAT, is that right? Whoever wrote it? The MLAT? Yeah. A letter of regulatory is not in use countries like Nepal. How can we manage the criminal outside of the country? Organized crime. Yeah, that's a question. Yeah.
Thank you for this very important question. In fact, we get this request from almost everyone at the moment, and this is one of the topics that we are dealing with in the UN as well. As you know, we have now counter-terrorism unit, which was just approved, and we are working with all the UN agencies. What is problematic at the moment is really the maybe slow speed of gaining understanding and capacity on the part of the government. And this is where we are really concentrating our support, because in all of this, sometimes the technology is new, and the mechanism that is involved covers many sectors. For instance, you have seen the cybercrime related to banking recently in Asia and the Pacific, and it has millions of dollars damage attached to it. So we are trying to speed up these efforts as well as to cover other sectors other than ICT.
Just for your information, there's a Budapest Convention on cybercrime. So that's a convention which is already in place, and it actually asks government to be a signatory. And what it means is that you can have mutual cooperation among the governments who are the signatory of Budapest Convention on cybercrimes.
Is Nepal already?
So I'm not sure if Nepal has already signed it or not. Most of the countries, I mean, in Southeast Asia, I don't remember if they have. I don't think they have signed it, but there is some, legal international cooperation document already available.
I'd like to add a personal experience. We have a Sahana server that's running in Maldives, and that because the ISPs were attacked on the DDoS attack, so they were unable to issue warnings, during the tropical storm season. And I've talked to SCAP, Tsuko, ITU, APT, maybe ISOC also. We need to put together some kind of a set of guidelines and governments can adapt in terms of setting up their data centers, like saying you need to have A, B, and C. Please, gentlemen, ladies.
I was a bit wondering what's the relation between the criminal act cross-border and the disasters. If you wrote your question and you can explain the context, can you do so with the microphone? Thank you. And it's important, I bet.
As I work in Nepal police, I face so many problems. Like last year we have earthquake, and during that time there were many funds coming from outside the country, and the fund were vanished. The main victims, they didn't get the fund, and there many people were saying that there is a cybercrime. The people outside the Nepal, they are taking out the money, but not the original victim, they are getting the money. And that was the main issue. As you told that from Twitter, Facebook, you have gained the data, but we haven't get anything till now.
Yeah, actually many crimes have been found during or after the crisis period, but she has some say. Yes, please. Thank you.
To add something similar that happened in Fiji, we had a lot of people on social media, so panic happened because of social media, because people were giving the wrong information, people were going to the wrong decentralized places. The one thing that I wanted to mention was that in relation to what you said, I guess it's, I lost my thoughts. What I was saying for social media, there were a lot of people. That wasn't me. That wasn't my voice. A lot of people were using social media to sort of get funds. So people outside of the country were already doing a lot of charity sort of events, and that didn't help. So that's what I wanted to mention. My thoughts are back.
Thank you. Yeah, I was told 2 more minutes for this session. Yes. There are 3 things: the disaster and the real crimes or crimes and the cyber crimes. So they're all interrelated, but we are wondering what exactly, right? Anybody has an answer or hint? Or shall we move to the next question?
I think what everybody's trying to get at is saying cybercrime is affecting our ability to respond to disasters using ICTs. Yeah.
Thank you, Nuwan. So the last question perhaps is back to the community empowerment. For thriving economies of Nepal, with multiple obstacles of geography and illiteracy in rural areas, what strategies could be adopted to integrate ICT as an integral part of their regular livelihood? Any precedents, any best practices? Repeat the question. How can we integrate the rural areas, all the obstacles, by putting the ICT as a tool? Mic, because I have some hearing problem. Sorry. Go to the microphone, please. Please, please. Or move the mic. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
translate.
looking at Fiji, Fiji has got the main island with has got a high penetration rate. There's more mobile phones or probably SIMs than people. So, I mean, for example, I think probably those sort of technologies can be used in terms of mesh networking for communication. I don't have any background in this. I was wondering if this could be a way.
Okay. You want to say 20 seconds?
Just one clarification. This is a question on disaster or in general? If the point is that we cannot just come up with new initiatives at the time of disaster, I totally agree that it has to be done earlier.
Who wrote the question? Can you say anything or? Yes, come up. And he'll be speaking in the extended session anyway.
Yeah, my point was for both in case of disaster or otherwise, but especially because in country like Nepal, where the roads have not reached to many places, and wireless network is very important for them. But because of illiteracy, when we even take ICT there, to start up is so difficult. It's so hard to make them understand what ICT is, and especially when we say about teaching ICT or understanding ICT is not enough. It's beneficial when they know how to use it in their regular lifestyles, and when they use it in daily basis, it's very important during the disaster. They can automatically have an idea to use ICT devices or measures. That was my question.
Yeah, so in emergency communication, we say use ICTs that are integrated into your daily lives. So don't try to introduce it during the disaster. Use what is already integrated into your daily lives. And if it's not, then don't use it.
Unfortunately, that's the reality, right? And now we are going into the simulation kind of exercise. No one, you take the lead.
Yeah, so we're going to give you a second opportunity now to actually express. We have four posters here, right? One is other, international coordination, local infrastructure, and community empowerment. Nisarat will and our friends Pio will distribute some sticky notes. So if you have an issue that you want to address that's in international coordination, for example, use the red sticky note to write down your issue, what we call the root cause of this issue. Then you use the green sticky note to write what might be the possible solution or the end solution, and that goes in the leaf of the tree. So you see a tree, and the root, you write your issue on the sticky note, put it on the root, and then the solution, potential solution or the strategy, you write it as on the green sticky note and then put it on the leaf. So please get a two sticky notes and then write it down. And then at each of the posters, quickly designate somebody as a rapporteur and let them kind of summarize your answer for you, right? So we have about 10 minutes to yeah. Yeah, so use the red sticky note first. Write down what is the issue that you want to address in terms of not having access to ICTs during a disaster. Why is it? Is it because we don't have good friends across the borders and we can't ask them to bring them equipment? Something like that. That's an example. So what is your issue that you want to address? Write that down on the red sticky note and place it on the root of the tree. And the green one is what you think might be a potential solution or a strategy for solving that issue, and put it up on as a leaf.
After you read the red ones, you write the green ones, or simultaneous? Simultaneous. Or either way, you can put the red ones and read some ones on the tree and put the green ones, whatever you like. Some questions you really don't have the answer, but somebody should, or some answers. Yeah, and there are 4 posters with each themes: community, international, local, and others. Okay. Okay, think fast. We don't have time sometimes in the disaster. So what's the problem you're facing now? Think you're in the capital, in the ministry, or in the ISP, or you're the data center guy, or you're in the community. You have to write the challenges first. Questions or challenges, burdens, problems you face at the disaster, or your own experience, or hearsay. It could be technical, it could be social, legal, it could be human, policy. I want to collect your smart ideas. Hope you can collectively share. Starting good. Good. If not, you can still use time. No one, don't push too much. We have still good time. We'll end this exercise after all 5 minutes before 1 o'clock. So you have 2 or 3 more minutes to write down and go to the poster. You didn't prepare any special gift for the winner? Yes, good. And even though you haven't written, you are free to read, go stand up, walk around. It's another physical exercise. You can walk. And please stay near the poster you posted. If you put multiple, choose one. Yeah, guys, please stay by the poster you posted if you like. So, bring the mic to the first Atsuko. Or would you wait a little bit more? Maybe better wait a little bit, somebody is writing still. We need someone there for other to give the summary. Someone volunteer?
Okay, I think we are ready.
Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
To summarize 3 stickers into one.
So if I can start, my point is that normally the disaster risks are not understood well. So how can you prepare if you don't know what is a risk in your community? And
well, basically, I wanted to join her because she was alone. So I'm talking about proprietary licenses, that hinder communication apps or disaster apps that could be promoted within a community. So the lack of those, basically the proprietary license system sort of prevents the development of ICT and community infrastructure. And similarly, with you look at mobile phone network carriers, I mean, they could open up their network or the signal towers to localized communication in terms of disaster. This doesn't happen for some reason. I don't know why.
in terms of the solution, this could be something that we can all work on. There are successful pilots. It's just that it needs to be upscaled or replicated or studied more carefully so that other countries can adopt. So this is something that we may need to look at more carefully.
Thank you very much. Shall we move on to the local infrastructure?
So the problem we face in local infrastructure is mostly related to connectivity, because the local connectivity is quite down. Just before the earthquake, the connectivity goes down. Also, it's about the cost of the connectivity, and mostly, especially in rural areas, the information that is provided is not localized. So everybody is more focused on capital place, or everybody is sharing the same news. So that's the main issue in local infrastructure that we found, and the strategic solution is obviously about raising awareness among the officials as well as the victims and all the stakeholders involved. And we also need a well-functioning disaster management information system, and not within the centralized government or centralized system, but localized system in different local areas. And all the information needed there could be collected here. somewhat like Dumbo network can be used to help it out. And we can also share it with our neighbors because they might not be able to afford, or it's easier if somebody affords it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next group, you ready?
In that disaster situation, although there is coordination, especially regarding the ICT recovery and improvement, that coordination is not stable and not consistent among the international communities. So there should be a permanent coordination body to, how can I say, to maintain the coordination, to have a stable and continuous coordination among the local and international stakeholders.
In other areas we have is like in the financial disaster, like it usually like happen into like from like a big company or like a big high tech giants and organization, and usually they use technology itself to commit crimes, and this the maybe some fraud cross border force. So the possible solution may be like some financial tracking, transaction tracking among the international banks, or the government have some sort of like a guideline or policy in terms of like how to cope with this financial fraud.
Okay, about international coordination, I don't know, Atsuko, do you want to mention something about the UN's role? International coordination. So one of the issues they had was there's no place to go about,
Yes.
who's coordinating what.
Thank you, thank you. Actually, we have an agency called OCHA, which is coordinating. They are the coordinator when something happens. So if you go to the websites, we have a dedicated a space for the coordination with the government as well as among the partners. I didn't want to talk about it because for time limitation, but if you are interested, I'll be more than happy to provide more additional information and the details on how that works.
Right. So my argument is, why isn't the government taking this, and why are we expecting the UN to do everything for us? Okay.
Okay, so in terms of issues, other issues, ignorance, lack of awareness on disaster issues. So I have give you an example. When the Fiji's tsunami drill happened, people went to the seawall to find out how the tsunami looks. So I think it's ignorant, but also stupidity. But I think there needs to be a lot of awareness and capacity building again on making sure that they understand what a tsunami is going to do. Social media idiots who are posting and creating a lot of panic. This is one of the main issues, and I think there needs to be some sort of coordination by the national governments and by the communities and stuff to sort of tackle these issues. I don't know who mentioned this in terms of strategies, but how to balance privacy and openness, especially posting disturbing images on social media. I think this is a great point. I'm not sure who mentioned that, but maybe someone can talk about that. And make straight process to the concern center if people in disaster put hashtags such as cry for help to their own social media. Okay, I should have repeated that, said in a different way, but yeah, use hashtags to sort of create that awareness.
In the countries like Nepal, there is no electricity in the Himalayan part, and the people, they have a low economy and they don't use smartphone. So what we can do, or what is to be happen, that there should be electricity, and the people has to be knowledge about that, about the pre and post disaster during that time. So people are unaware about that. So we have to make aware by using ICT. Can you please?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I mean, when you talk about ICT, we are not only talking about mobile phones, right? I mean, radios and television also come into this picture. Anybody want to comment? Where's our moderator? Yeah. So all the groups have talked. If you want to give the audience a chance to comment,
Any burning question or urging comment? You completely satisfied or still blurred? Yes. Microphone for describing. The transcriber can't listen unless you speak out with the microphone, please. Turn it on.
In terms of using social media during disasters and emergency management, I don't know, is there a good resource, any resource you would recommend for best practice guidelines or in general, or is it still in process to be developed?
There are scattered areas of resources, right, Najee?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. So, I mean, we have seen social media playing a very important role, and there are examples as well. But to your point, I don't recall actually such a document which is already available with some best practices. But I think I'll take it further internally, and we'll see if Internet Society can come up with something which can be a document showing how social media has worked in different parts of Asia Pacific for disaster mitigation and recovery.
I think use Google or any other search engines. You get some scattered papers or reports like that. But she has one more say. Could you go to the microphone, please? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm not trying to take the mic all of the time, but I just want to say that we used the best practice in our organization. We created a social media policy. So if a disaster happens, don't tweet, don't Facebook. You have to go through the media protocols. You have to go through the communication protocols. So we have that already in place, something that we can share with you if you'd like.
Thank you. Okay, with all the other pressing need to speak up, I think I have to keep the time.
Okay.
Anything? So wrap up, Kanchana, a few seconds.
I'm more on it from the technical side, and I think in order for for us to recover the infrastructure very quickly, we need the people to be familiar with our technology. So what I'm doing now is putting all these dumbbell net in remote villages. In disaster-prone area, so that people know how to manage the network and be able to help themselves when things happen.
I have just one question to your early comment about the coordination amongst AP didn't work.
Right.
And because people said, wait. What would you suggest for the next round?
Right. I found the first round when things happened in Myanmar, it was easy to talk to APNIC, talk to APNG and blah, blah, and get things to work. But somehow, Nepal situation, I could not get anyone to help. Everybody said, oh, we wait for one guy. I can't remember whom. We wait for news from him first before we move. So I said, okay, you wait. I will not wait. I think ideally, if there is kind of an organization that coordinates.
As a kind of standing body?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yes, just taking what Kanchana said, I think this is another problem that we face, especially in developing countries. We are not proactive. We always act once things have happened. And we act for 6 months or 7 months, and then we wait for the disaster to come again. I mean, honestly, this is an approach that we have to change. On coordination, as I said in my talk as well, it has to be central coordination, but because what happens is that community panics and then the stakeholder panic as well, and there are multiple stakeholders probably doing the same thing, but not talking to each other. So, that's also could be my concluding remarks as well.
Okay, Nuwan, you have any say? I'm not asking the speakers actually, but
Thank you.
anyway.
Just very quickly, I think involving government early on and to start preparing is very important. So if there's anything we can support, we'll be happy to do so.
Yeah, so thank you very much everyone for joining and your inputs. For me, this is a learning experience as an emergency communication expert trying to understand, the local needs and trying to design systems. So just to give you an example, like Kanchana, I mean, she says that she's a technology person, but if there's a will, there's a way, because Wi-Fi, for example, you cannot use it in Thailand freely, and then she came about it by creating a social enterprise and then being able to distribute it, right? So there's no such thing as we cannot do it, we can do it, but we need to find the right way.
Thank you. Before closing, one announcement. There will be the first ICT Disaster Response Conference in Cebu, and Jeffrey is organizing September 2021 this year. If you want to go to Cebu and dive or join the conference, please do so. As I said in the beginning, we'll have, once we finish this in 30 seconds, we'll have an extended session about Nepal earthquake disaster and the village, rural area, and urban area survey with interesting videos. So if you can extend 20, 30 more minutes here, you're most welcome. For all, I think, as Kanchana said, there's a lack of coordination mechanisms now. I think it's your turn or time to speak up and together with us to try prepare something. Because Asia Pacific is, as we all know, almost a department of all the different kind of disasters, from volcano eruption to tsunami, earthquake, water hazard, you name it, right? So we got to be prepared. And the role of ICT, especially the mobile phones and networks, are playing more and more critical roles that giving the burdens to those who are engaged with ICT. That, I think, with that note, I'd like to close this session, and thank you for all the participants. Thank you very much again. Let's start. Thank you for the transition. Yes, those who have something, you can go to eat or talk, but now, come forward. Not there. All right. Let me introduce two guys. Binod Basnet and Ashwati Tripathi, both from Educating Nepal, a non-profit entity helping the schools in the rural